Damn. Seen it coming from a mile away, but damn, that didn't make it any better. Episode 23 of Soul Leveling. Let's just title this episode, Let the Bodies Hit the Floor. Not for our main team. No, they have plot armor. I don't know why, like, all these S ranks from Japan who are just mop the floor with them. For some reason, all of them lost their heads in a split second. But for some reason, our team, no, we got plot armor over here. But damn, Sung, did you have to wait that long? Did you have to wait for Byung-gyu to get taken out? Did we have to wait that long before we finally showed up? I kind of feel like I don't like Sung right now. I really don't like Sung right now. But yeah, anyways, episode itself incredible. That whole scene with the bug going around and just destroying everybody with the music in the background. The music, my gosh. So want to hear, Yuki, you're a genius. And that music just totally fit for that whole scene. But really fantastic episode overall. There is one thing that for some reason the anime did not want to get into, which is insane. I mean, it does imply it in the episode, but there's greater detail in the manhwa around what happened with Byung-gyu. Yes, this insect eats him. They specify in the manhwa, he literally took his memories. He took his memories, he took his strength and everything, and he's applying it to there. It kind of shows like those little brief shots where Baek was talking to him, and he was talking about how he was a history buff. That's why the insect brings up a king. Because yes, you took down my queen, and it's not enough to take down you soldiers, I want your king. That's why he said that. That's why the insect wants the strongest. He wants the king because he wants an eye for an eye, basically. Very little interesting thing there. But anyways, let's get in the episode proper. Starting things off with everything that happened outside. Yes, everybody just losing their heads. Heads popping off left and right. Again, for some reason, the S-ranked Japan team, they all just lose their heads instantaneously. But now, one thing that I found interesting that, yes, you have at some point Kei and them, they go over to investigate. And then very immediately, he starts vomiting. He smells this insect, and that aura is too much for him, and he pukes. And I mentioned in a previous episode, Skip Content, that Kei, it was similar to Cha, that he can smell the aura as well, but he claimed that he was possibly stronger than she was because he had to wear a mask where she was just using a napkin. It's so funny to kind of note in this episode that the moment that Cha actually ran into the same insect, she didn't vomit. She did collapse, but she didn't vomit. And so I'm like, well, that's kind of a sign there that she's actually better at managing it than you are, which I kind of assumed that was the case, that she's learned to deal with it better than he has. But it was kind of funny to see that. But yeah, he gets wiped out. And yeah, Goto and them go to investigate, which we'll get into that stuff later on. But yes, inside the actual lair, we have our team slowly moving towards the queen. Really fantastic shot of Cha coming down, trying to show off, stepping on the blade and cutting off the monster's head. But no, they specifically kind of point out the fact that, and you kind of get a sense of that later on when she's fighting the queen, Cha and Byung-gyu are just incredible with each other. Because Cha herself is already really incredible. She's like literally the top in South Korea. She is incredibly powerful. But now you have him sort of providing those buffs for her. They kind of point out the idea of it's almost like he's giving her wings. Like she's taking out like twice as many enemies as Baek is in the same amount of time. That's how incredibly powerful she is, plus the buffs that he's giving her. But yeah, eventually Cha smells it, and then Baek uses his vision in order to see it. They start going into where the queen is, and that's when we have Baek finally showing his true form. We finally see the beast mode Baek, which is interesting to see that everybody else, well, at least Cha herself, pointing out the fact that this is the first time she's seen it. Like, this isn't a thing where he doesn't like to show it to people because it gives an indication that he's like embarrassed of it. He doesn't like people seeing that form of him. I kind of wondered if there was an aspect there where he might fear that other hunters might view him as a magical beast and want to attack him. But no, it kind of seemed more like the fact that he just doesn't want people to see it. And it's very interesting that, again, Cha has never seen it before. And two, he's doing that in spite of that, even though the fact that they are being broadcast. They're currently being broadcast, this whole thing. And so he's actually going out of his comfort zone in order to use that. While they're in that room, there is a cool aspect here that, yes, obviously the ratings of the television is going up, and they want this broadcaster guy, the guy with the camera, to go in there further. And he starts to step forward, but at some point, Byung-gyu is like, no, you don't do that. You're going to get yourself killed. This is an S-rank dungeon right now. We're at the boss. You don't need to be doing that. And it's cool because they kind of point out the fact that Byung-gyu at some point mentions the fact that, yes, despite the fact that he's an S-rank healer, and this broadcaster guy is like, yeah, typically with healers, they're not combat heavy. Like, they're supposed to be in the back line. Byung-gyu points out the fact that he's an A rank in combat. Like, yes, he's an S rank healer, but in melee combat, physical combat, he's equal to an A rank fighter. And even this guy with the cameras pointing out that I'm an A rank too, but it seems like he's more stronger than I am. Which again, I can probably add it to that aspect of the S ranks being so broad, because they can kind of evaluate somebody's rank, you know, all the way up to S rank. It feels like S rank is so hard to actually calculate that you can be incredibly powerful. It sort of gives me a feeling that he might be pretty high up there. They had a brief scene that was skipped in the anime, which was essentially just some old couple that was talking about their only child that was lost on the Jeju island, and the grandmother wants to watch it. Everybody, of course, in the entire country is watching it. The grandmother wants to watch it, and she's inviting the old man. He's like, no, this is the fourth time they're doing it. They're not going to do it this time either. He didn't want to bother watching it, but then at some point he gets caught up in it. He decides to go in there and actually watch them fight the queen. I didn't see anything in there that indicated who their child was, but again, they did imply the idea they lost their child to Jeju Island. But yeah, they go to fight the queen, and I like the fact that yes, technically they all did their part. They're all taking turns, taking their hits at the queen. But it's like at some point it's just buff up Cha and send her in. She just basically souls the damn thing, cuts all the legs off, and does a big massive Excalibur and just takes it out. But it was cool to see that, yeah, the queen at some point was employing some sort of poison, and Byung-gyu was able to offset that. Like, it's just literally melting their faces. But again, really incredible animation, especially for Cha herself, kind of just shooting in there, slicing away, and then just coming down with this massive attack. I think the animators just wanted to go all out in this episode with just Cha. Like, yeah, technically there was some cool shots with Baek going in there. Ma was incredible as well, but yeah, it was all for Cha. But yeah, they point out at some point that it does some sort of cry. They're not sure if it's a death cry or if it's a calling cry. They assume that their interference is going to block it. But yeah, we end up finding out what it was crying out for, and that's pretty much all the insect, including the bipedal one, the new one. And like I said, there's a little bit of side of me that's kind of bothered by the fact that just previously we have this insect literally just instantaneously cutting off everybody's head. They literally can't see it coming. It's that fast and that brutal, and it's just chopping off heads. But here, it's just like slicing them. It's just attacking them. Plus, if you take into account that, yes, in a minute when he does take out Byung-gyu, it does point out that it absorbs strength. And that's sort of what I thought was going to be the case the moment that it came there and it started consuming the queen's head. That my assumption there was that it was eating its brain. It's like in that tribal mindset where if you consume the brains of the fallen, you will obtain their strength and their wisdom. And so I thought that was pretty much the case here. This insect is eating the queen because it wants to obtain something from it. Sure enough, it's obtaining its memories and it's obtaining strength. So this is even more stronger than what the S ranks were dealing with outside. It just consumed an S rank queen, and thus it's going to be even more powerful at this point. But no, I did get a cack out of the fact that it's going around and taking out everybody, and it reminded me so much of Sung. Like, we have an enemy bug monster thing here that is literally their side Sung, because he's just going around and acting all cool and just effortlessly taking everything out. I'm like, it's totally Sung. Which was funny because, yes, later on when Goto does face off against it, he's like, this kind of reminds me of something. Oh, Sung. This beast in front of him that's so powerful and it's giving off this battle energy feels like Sung. And yeah, I can kind of wonder if that's sort of them tipping the hand towards the idea of one of my early theories that I had is that Sung died way back there. That episode 1, 2, whatever it was, that first beginning segment, that double dungeon, back there Sung died. And that Sung has always, up to this point, has always been a magical beast. It's just sort of, incognito as Sung and living in our world and going in the dungeon and killing the monsters to get stronger and stronger for someday to be either mission to kill all humans or take out another god that's in this other world. It kind of tips towards that. That kind of tips towards that. Could this thing be another Sung? Question mark. Again, if you know the manhwa or the novel, I don't need answers. I'm having fun speculating. I read the manhwa up into where the anime gets to get skipped content, but I don't want to know anything after this. But yeah, cool again. Ma's like losing limbs and whatnot, and the entire time Byung-gyu is just keeping him up. Baek's going at it. He's constantly keeping him healed. The entire time Byung-gyu is keeping himself hidden using a special ability that prevents him from being able to move, but he can at least keep healed while being hidden, which, gosh dang, it so sucks how much they just showed how great Byung-gyu is in this entire fight. Like, if he was not here, they've been dead a long time ago. But the fact that he's here buffing them, giving them strength, they're able to do this mission so much faster because they have a limited time. And because he's been there, they're able to fight so much faster. They're able to not have to take rests or have to heal themselves up or bandage themselves. He's keeping them moving. But yes, eventually the monster spots Byung-gyu, stabs him, chomps his head, and then Baek goes after him, and it points out, again, in the manhwa, it specifically points out that by consuming him, he was able to obtain his memories and his strength. And again, showing little clips in the manhwa of that brief discussion with Baek, talking about the fact that he's a history buff, and my assumption here is that he got the concept of soldiers and a king and all that kind of stuff. Basically, you killed my leader, I want your leader. Eye for an eye situation here. So it immediately pivots from taking them all out to wanting to find the most powerful. And it assumes, based on Goto's energy, that that's got to be the one. So it goes rushing out there, leaving the team behind to essentially be taken out by all the remaining insects. And that's when, again, the shadows show up and block the attack. And then Sung says exchange. So he's going to be popping up over there. I'm assuming he's popping up there. I don't think he's going to pop up to where Goto is. I think he's going to pop up to where everybody else is at. But yeah, Goto's perspective is interesting. And there's quite a bit of skip content here in the idea that, yes, Goto and them are trying to find all these fallen comrades. They're trying to figure out what the hell happened there. And yes, eventually he gets a call from a Mr. Matsumoto, which seems to be his boss, or at least maybe somebody that is high up in Japan, I'm assuming. And yes, he's complained that Goto is not doing his regular scheduled check-ins and wants to get a little bit of a sip rep. And that's when Goto tells him that, yes, everybody's fallen. They were too weak. It kind of points out how cruel Goto is in the idea that, yes, he doesn't care that his comrades has fallen. He's like, they must have been too weak, whatever, shrug. But Matsumoto points out the fact that, yeah, it seems like this entire time they've had a different reason for Wayne to be there. Yes, we already knew based on the skip content before that Goto was there in order to become a national level hunter. The idea that national level hunters have to take down like S rank gates and whatnot in order to achieve that title. And so he's hoping by doing this and helping out with this whole thing that he will be given that title. Well, there's actually another reason why they're there. And it's kind of one of those things where they assumed this was going to be the case, that things were probably going to go downhill, and they were hoping to be there in order to essentially take advantage of the situation. The idea here is that, yeah, they figure everybody inside the Queen's Lair is dead. There's so many ants and everything flooding in there, they're not going to make it. Goto says their chance of survival, 0%. Not going to happen. But they point out that, yes, this is great. This will work. What's going to happen is you're going to retreat. We'll go, oh no, all the Japanese have died. All the S-rank Japanese fighters have all died. We're going to come in there and, in their honor, we'll clean up the mess. Don't worry, South Korea. We'll clean up after you. We'll be the heroes in the end. That's their ultimate goal, along with the idea of a total annihilation of all the South Korean S-ranks. Their hope is that they'll become weakened by this whole situation. At the same time, Japan gets bolstered up. And yes, there is a sense here based on a skipped chapter in the manhwa from this vessel. There's a Chinese vessel, and they're waiting for possibly any sort of invading ants. This Chinese vessel is talking about the fact that, yeah, we're kind of expecting in the end, after this is all concluded, that it's going to spell disaster of one of two countries. Again, the idea that all the S-rank South Korean S-ranks, they all get taken out, and thus South Korea is weak. Or, yeah, through this whole situation with Japan essentially trying to take advantage of the situation, they could lose all their S ranks, or it could possibly blow up in their face. They could find out that they were all planning on this. It's pretty interesting. It kind of does turn this whole situation into, yeah, it wasn't just Goto trying to get a bolster. It wasn't just Japan trying to flex themselves. There is an element here where there was a hope of taking massive advantage of this whole situation. Which makes me wonder that if this whole thing didn't go south the way that it did, if there wasn't this really powerful monster that's in here, would the Japanese S-ranks have killed the South Korean S-ranks before the mission ended? Question mark. But yeah, the monster shows up to Goto, takes out Ishida, he tells the other one to run away, and immediately senses a familiar feeling from this monster. Yeah, the fact the monster is literally talking. But yes, the other aspect that it feels like the magical power from the monster feels very familiar to a certain song. And again, I think that's probably tipping its hand a little bit there, but we'll have to wait and see. But I'm assuming, I don't know, Goto's sword breaks. The moment that he draws it, the sword breaks. So the question there is Goto dead? And based on the fact that every other one of the every one of the other S-rank Japanese hunters get taken out in one blow, maybe. But we'll have to wait and see. But brutal episode. Definitely a brutal episode. Anyways, that's my thoughts on episode 23 of Solo Leveling. Really fantastic episode, really incredible music, some great gut-wrenching scenes. Really excited to see how things end. We have one more episode, the finale, next week. I'll be here to check it out, and I hope you guys join me for that. But until then, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you like this content and you want to support the channel more, I have links in the description below. Greatly appreciate it. Until next time, y'all take care.